Alright, today is a nice sunny day, even though it's not particularly warm in February here in Utah, but the snow is not coming down, the sky is blue, and so I thought it'd be a good day to get out and warm up my bikes a little bit. I'm going to be riding each of them today, and as I was moving them outside, the thing that struck me is that every single one of my bikes is considered by many people to be a beginner bike. And you could argue that back and forth if you'd like, but the fact remains that a lot of people think of these as beginner bikes. So as I ride each one of these, I thought I'd just give you my thoughts on that. What I think is good about them for beginners, what I may think is not so good about them for beginners, what I think about them in terms of long-term riding and experienced pro riders. Because a lot of people who have been riding their whole lives have bikes like this. So why is that? Anyway, that's what I'll be doing. If you don't recognize these bikes, starting here on the right is my CRF300L Rally. That's the one that most of my videos are about. So if you're interested in that one, plenty of content on that. Then I've got my XT250, a little bit of content on that, not too much. And then I have zero content on my little CRF125F. So you'll get to hear me talk about that. I think I'll start with the smallest and move up, and we'll go from there. Alright, first out of the gate is the 2022 CRF125F. I picked this bike up last year, obviously, 2022, and I got it primarily for my daughter to ride with me, and you know, she's a petite person and she had no real motorcycle experience, so I wanted a true beginner bike, and I think this is about as good of a bike to learn on as there is. I mean, the clutch is just easy to pull, it's intuitive, you know, the seat height is just right. This is the big wheel model of the CRF125F. The non-big wheel is even a little bit shorter than this, so you know, she's tall enough that this is just right for her. But if you have a rider, or if you are a rider that's very short, then you could get the CRF125F non-big wheel, and I think it will be a great bike to learn on. The good things about this bike are, like I've already said, it's low to the ground, it's very non-intimidating, it's light. I don't know the exact weight, I'll look that up and put it up on the screen. Easy to pick up if you, or when you tip over. Clutch is easy, the gearing is very intuitive. The suspension is decent. I mean, I'm 185 pounds right now, and it feels fine. You know, obviously I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to do anything intense today because it's all muddy and icy out on the real trails. But so it rides great. It feels great. Super easy to get on and just start riding. My daughter, who'd never worked a clutch in her life, got on and was driving around within a few minutes, you know. So yeah, the great bike to learn on if you're just small, or you know, very new to the whole experience type of riding. The cons, kind of the same as the pros. It's very small, so I'm not a huge person. I'm 5'9", 185 pounds, so you know, on the heavier side for my height at the moment, and short legs. I've got a 29-inch inseam, and this is definitely a fun little bike to zip around on, but it feels like it doesn't feel like something I could spend all day in the seat in by any means, and it's not made for that. This is a true dirt bike. It's not a dual sport. So that's the other con. Like if you are getting into motorcycling and you want it to be a commuter, or you want the dual sport capabilities, this is not the bike for you. If you can see, there's no speedometer. There's no there's nothing. There's not even, I actually added, if you look here, see that green light? That's a neutral light that I jerry-rigged in. It does not come with a neutral light. These big clunky rearview mirrors I added after, just because when I go out with my daughter and she goes in front, she doesn't like not being able to know that I'm behind her. So I got these, like, I think they're $15 or something on Amazon. So out of the box, this has no mirrors, it has no speedometer, it has no neutral light. It's got 4 gears, which to me is plenty for the capacity of this engine. But you're not going to be going fast. I think my daughter, who weighs maybe 80 pounds, has been up to like 50 miles an hour or so. But you know, I definitely couldn't go that fast with my larger girth. So yeah, it's not fast, it's not big, but those are very positive things for a beginner. I'd say that the biggest competitor for this bike, if you're looking for this size, is the Yamaha XT250. I looked at that one as well when I was shopping around, and I think, you know, from my observations, at least from my internet searchings, it seems like the TTR Yamaha would be a little bit better if you're serious about dirt. It's got 5 gears instead of 4. I think the suspension is a little bit better. But the big reason why I didn't is because, well, there's a couple reasons. I bought this at the same dealership that I bought my CRF300L Rally, and so it's kind of convenient just to be able to take them in at the same times for maintenance and things like that. But the biggest reason for me is that this has fuel injection, where the TTR Yamaha does not. It's still a carburetor, and I'm just not a fan of fiddling with carburetors if I can avoid it. And so I went with the Honda, and it's just been great. I couldn't ask for a better bike for what I bought it for. It's perfect. Brand new rider, smaller person, just learning clutch, just learning motorcycles in general. I don't think you can get much better than this CRF125F. Big wheel in this case. So I'm gonna just head back and we'll move on up the ladder. Now, just real quick, I should have mentioned this earlier, but if you're new to my videos, I'm very stream of consciousness, no script. I'm just going to be talking about things that I think of as I think of them, and I'm not going to have a lot of specs and data like that. So if that's the type of thing you're looking for, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you ditch this video. And also, since I'm talking about 3 different bikes, I will put in chapter marks in the YouTube video. So if you look in the timeline at the bottom of your screen, you should see, you know, so you can jump to the XT250 or the CRF300L Rally if you want. Yeah, just out of habit, I tried to go up a gear, but I'm in 4th, and that's as high as this bike goes. And I will say, you know, obviously I've been talking about this from the point of view of a beginner rider and why it's good for them, but a lot of people who have been riding for a long time love little bikes like this. You know, they're just great to zip around as a pit bike. It's just a lot of fun, and it's so light. I can practically pick it up with one hand. So if you just, you know, want something that's low maintenance, high entertainment, this is a great choice. If you don't mind the fact that it's not street legal. So depending on where you live, that may complicate things. I'm lucky enough to live in a place where you can drive on surface streets to get out to the desert on a straight dirt bike. And before I take this back, I do want to just do a quick walk around. It is a fun little bike. fairly quiet. I know some people put aftermarket mufflers on it. A lot of people put aftermarket suspension. You know, those are the people who are, you know, probably more experienced riders that are, you know, just using this for fun and just kind of decking it out with all the cool stuff. Of course, it's got the Earth symbol from Avatar, and the only reason I put that on there is because I'm a huge nerd. I added these Amazon cheapy handguards. I've talked about those in a couple of other videos. They haven't bent on this bike, probably because it's so light. My daughter's tipped over on it a couple times and no issues with the handguards. And it's just as simple as can be. Single cylinder, air cooled. But it does have electric start. It does have fuel injection. And it's got a Kickstarter. I'm not actually sure I've ever used that. Let's give it a shot. If I can get my big fat boot over it. Alright, so the kickstart works beautifully. It's actually a nice thing if you ever need it. I was worried I might need to use it today just to get it going because I haven't ridden it for a while. But the battery was still juicy. Alright, and next up we have the venerable and beloved XT250 from Yamaha. Now this bike is a true dual sport. You can see right off the bat we've got a speedometer, we've got a odometer, a tripometer, a clock, got a neutral light, we've got blinkers, and so yeah, this is a fully equipped dual sport that you can ride on the road. So this is my first dual sport, and I just love the XT250. It is a bulletproof bike. It is super approachable for the vertically challenged like myself. With my 29-inch inseam, I can easily flat-foot it with both feet. Like the CRF125F, it is both air-cooled and fuel injected. So you're not messing with a radiator, you don't have a radiator to brake, you're not messing with a carburetor. And again, like the CRF125F, the clutch is super intuitive, easy for a new rider to learn, and obviously you have a little bit more power with the 250. I can't remember what the exact CCs are on the 250. I think it's like a 249 or 47 or something like that. I'll put those up as well on the screen. I'll look it up, as well as the weight. This is quite a light bike, but obviously not nearly as light as the little CRF125F. But I've had it on its side an embarrassing number of times, so and it's very easy to pick up. And I think if you're new to riding and you need a dual sport, or you want a dual sport, and you are not the tallest person around, you just can't get better than the XT250. If you can deal with the fact that, you know, there's plenty of people in the community that think of this bike as a girlfriend bike or a wife bike or, you know, whatever. If you don't have much of an ego about that, which I certainly don't, that is just a fantastic bike to learn on and to keep forever. I know people who this is their retirement bike, or they started with an XT250 and just have no intention of ever doing anything else because it just checks all the boxes. You know, can it go on the highway? I mean, technically, yes. I've been up to about 70 miles an hour on this bike, and the speedometer reads a little bit high, so about 10% in my experience on this XT250. So when it says 70, I'm really going, you know, 63, 64 miles an hour. So definitely not a highway bike for me. You know, in Utah, there's lots of freeways that have speed limits of 75, 80 miles an hour. So I wouldn't take it out on the highway, but people do, and people travel the world with things. With this thing, it is, I would say it's even more bulletproof than the CRF125F. Yamaha just knows how to build solid bikes. I mean, I honestly believe if I rolled this thing down a mountain, I could get up and ride it home. So yeah, I mean, I really can't say enough good things about this. I mean, I wouldn't say I learned how to ride a bike on this, because I had ridden motorcycles off and on before, but it's definitely the bike that made me fall in love fully with motorcycling and dual sporting. And so, you know, it's always going to have a special place in my heart. So some things on the negative side of this bike, and none of these really apply to a new rider, so I don't think there really is any negatives about this if you're looking for a first bike or a bike to learn on. But if you're kind of past that stage, some of the negatives I'd say is it really depends on the type of riding you want to do. If you're going to be on the road a lot, there's nothing stopping you from being buffeted by the wind. Obviously, you can add an aftermarket windscreen if you'd like. And like I mentioned, there's not a ton of power. If you're going to be on stretches where you are going to feel uncomfortable being way underpowered compared to all the other traffic around you, then this might not be the bike for that. Some of the other modern things that are kind of nice that I'll talk about on the CRF300L Rally in a couple minutes. Even though this is light years above the dirt-only CRF125F, it's pretty minimal in terms of what the display gives you. Like I said, speedometer, odometer, tripometer, and time. You have no tachometer, you have no gear indicator. The XT250 is 5-speed, so if you're looking for a bike that has 6 speeds, like a lot of them do, this is not going to be the bike for you. But that's about it. I mean, this bike is it's fun. It goes wherever you want it to go. Even if it doesn't get there the fastest, it's going to get there. And very confidence inspiring. I mean, like I said, I've got 29-inch inseam. My legs are kind of splayed out pretty far, and I'm still flat-footed. And that is very confidence inspiring, especially for a newer rider. And for me, I mean, I still consider myself a newer rider, but you know, when you're on really steep or technical stuff and you're not feeling like you can just blast through it and you just kind of want to walk your way up, it's nice to be able to literally walk your way up by having both your feet on the ground. All right, before I take this one back, let's walk around it a little bit. So on this one, I've got these D-Flex hand guards that I put on, and they've got the integrated turn signals because it had no turn signals when I got it. I've got these cheapy little LED ones in the back. Got a skid plate down there. These are some cheap aftermarket rear view mirrors. I'm not sure what happened to the original ones. Again, I didn't have them when I bought the bike. Other than that, it's got this rack on it as well. Other than that, I think it is pretty much stock. One more thing that would possibly fall in the negative column is the gas tank size. For the XT250, there is no, at least last time I looked, there's no options for a larger aftermarket tank like there was on the XT225, for instance. So like I usually get about 150 miles out of that, but if I'm going on anything longer than about 100 miles, I throw in a Roto-Packs on the rack with an extra, I think it's 1.5 gallons of gas that gives me an extra 100 miles or so. So that is a factor if you're new but you just want to get right out and do longer rides. That might be an issue. Suspension is kind of notoriously soft and weak on the XT250, so if that's a factor for you, then it's a factor. Again, if you're looking at this as a beginner bike, it's probably not a factor, but it's always been great for me. When I bought my CRF300L Rally, it was a lot more noticeably soft. I've never really had a problem with the suspension on the XT250. And with that, I'll head back and hop on my last quote-unquote beginner bike. Now there's no kickstart on this. Kickstarts are kind of a rare thing to find these days on dual sports, on newer ones at least. But I have inadvertently let the battery run out while I've been out in the desert, and it is very easy to push start this. You know, I just kind of roll down a little hill in second gear and pop the clutch and away I go. So even though there is no kickstart, it's very easy to start without the battery in a pinch if you have to. Oh, one mod on this also that I didn't mention is it's got the wider foot pegs. They are quite small, especially if you're wearing big MX boots like I am right now. The stock foot pegs are a little bit puny on the XT250. And last, but definitely not least, we have my CRF300L Rally, the love of my life. So, again, a lot of people would consider this, and do consider this, a beginner bike. Personally, I don't. I think it could be a good beginner bike for someone with a little bit longer legs than me, but it would have been a little intimidating for me if it had been my first bike, just because of the seat height. It's about 35 inches or something, and it does squish down a little bit because of the soft suspension, but it still has me on, you know, kind of barely the balls of my feet, which would have been a little freaky to me when I was just learning how to ride. But I do think that if you're a beginner and you want kind of something that's closer to a true adventure bike than a dual sport, I think this is the best lightweight adventure bike that is on the market. And I am biased. If you watch my other dozens of videos about this bike, you'll know that that I love it. I'll do a walk around in a bit like I did with the other bikes, but I'm not going to go over all the mods just because I'm planning on having this bike for as long as I have my breath. So, you know, I've spent a good amount of money on mods, and there are a lot of them. From suspension to crash guards to bash plate to hand guards. I mean, there's just a lot of little things that I've done to this bike that I'm not going to go in on this. If you're interested in those, then take a look at my other videos. There's no shortage of information about what I've done to this bike. But in terms of, you know, suitability for a new rider, like I've talked about with the other bikes, the good things about it are that it's got an amazingly easy clutch to learn, probably even easier than either of the other two bikes that I've talked about, the CRF125 or the XT250, both of which are very easy on the clutch. But this one, it's got a slipper clutch. It's a lot more forgiving, and it's just easy to pull. It's just a great bike to work the clutch on. The gearing is very linear and intuitive up through 5, and it does have a 6th gear, which is a little bit of an overdrive for, you know, when you do get on a highway. This bike can go on a highway, or it can go highway speeds. Still not super comfortable for me to go on Utah highways that have, you know, 75 plus speed limits. This bike feels very comfortable to me going 70 miles an hour. But beyond that, there's just not much juice left. I have, at one time, going downhill with the wind at my back type of situation, been up to 90 miles an hour on this bike. But if you want to go fast on the road, this still is not the bike for you, I would say. Given all the things that it has, you know, with the big tower here, the Rally Tower for your console, and this little windshield, and the bigger tank and the fairings, given all that, it's still relatively light, not too hard for me to pick up. I've dropped this one several times as well, and it's pretty painless to pick up. And if you look at these bikes side by side, this one looks like a monster compared to my XT250, and especially compared to the CRF125F. But if you see people who have like this bike and a bigger bike, like a Tenere 700 or an Africa Twin, this one looks like a little, you know, it looks like the XT250 does next to this one. It just looks small and light, and it is, relatively speaking. So yeah, in terms of like beginner bike, first bike situations, to me it's a little bit of a stretch. But if you have any experience at all on a bike, and maybe you're a little bit taller, I'd say if you have an inseam of 32 inches or more, this is going to be easy to stand on. It could be great, especially if you know right out of the gate that you want to go on longer adventures. This Rally has a nice big tank that can get you over 200 miles easily. Like I said, it's got a little bit of a fairing. The dash is a lot more comprehensive than the XT250. Still not super technical compared to a lot of bikes nowadays, but it's got the speedometer, it's got a tachometer, it's got a gear indicator, of course it's got the odometer, it's got a fuel gauge. That's another thing that the XT250 doesn't have. It just has a, you know, an alert to let you know that you're low. It's got a clock, and it tells you your average miles per gallon. I'm sitting at 74.3 miles per gallon. Crazy good gas mileage on all of these bikes. So yeah, if you know you want a light adventure bike, then this is, in my opinion, the bike for you. If you're wanting more of a straight dual sport like the XT250, but you're a little bit taller than me, then the CRF300L would be a good choice. It's going to be lighter than this, smaller tank, but if you wanted to upgrade later, that one does now have, I think, a Cerebus or a Cherubus, I'm not sure how you say that, but I think they make over 3 gallon tank now for this 300L, so that's a huge plus for people who want the more dual sport style, without, you know, all this stuff and without the extra plastic fairings, but still want to go on longer adventure type rides. You can do that with the CRF300L now if you know, you can get the bigger tank, and if you wanted to, they even make aftermarket front towers, so you could practically turn a CRF300L into a 300L Rally if you really wanted to. You can't really do that the other way around. So if you're on the fence between the Rally and the 300L, you might want to take that into consideration, that that with a 300L you can practically turn it into a Rally, but you can't turn a Rally into a 300L. So yeah, and as promised, I'll do a little bit of a walk around here. In my opinion, it's just a gorgeous bike. recently put on new tires. The windshield light situation is kind of polarizing, but I happen to like it. Again, my nerdiness coming through with the Fire Nation symbol right there from Avatar. So there you have it. That is all of my quote-unquote beginner bikes. Well, not quite all. The most beginnerish bike that I have of all is a CT70, a Honda CT70, 1978, I think. But I didn't want to include it in this video because I didn't want to ride it around on the streets today. It has a maximum speed of about 25 miles per hour with me on it, and they're not available anymore. So I do have a whole video just talking about my CT70 though, so if you're interested in that, I'll put a link right there in the top right corner. So, in conclusion, why do I have so many quote-unquote beginner bikes? Well, you know, obviously in the case of the CRF125F, I did buy that strictly because it is a beginner bike. I wanted my daughter to have something that she could learn on. But in the case of my dual sports, the XT250 and this 300L Rally, I wasn't looking for the best beginner bike. I was looking for great bikes that are reliable, that I don't have to maintain much. I'm not a mechanic. I don't even know how to check the valves on a motorcycle. I wanted something that was just going to work when I started it, that I can pick up by myself out in the desert because I'm always by myself, that I can touch my feet to the ground hopefully, and just have fun on. And those were my criteria, not it needs to be a beginner bike. Even though when I bought the XT250, I was very much a beginner, and I still am a beginner. So I imagine that's part of it. But I just like light, low maintenance, bulletproof bikes, and those happen to be also great bikes for beginners. So would I at some point like a bigger bike? Yes, I think I would. I've got another video about the mid-size adventure bikes that I've kind of got my eye on. So I hope to one day, I'm not going to say graduate to one of those because I would not be leaving this bike behind, but expand myself, I guess, to one of those for a different type of riding, something that's going to be, you know, longer tours, more road riding is involved, things like that. And just because I really love motorcycles and I'd like to try something new. But as I said, I'm always going to have at least one quote-unquote beginner bike in my garage because they're just the perfect bike for the type of riding that I like to do. I hope this has been informative to somebody out there. As always, I appreciate you watching my videos. Subscribe to my channel if you feel like it, and ride safe.